A child's silence. A mother's despair. A waiter's secret. Witness the extraordinary discovery that shattered a perfect world and built a legacy of hope. Get that man away from my son, now. Mrs. Catherine Thorne's voice cut through the refined air of the Elysium restaurant like a razor. All heads turned to the most expensive table in the establishment, where the 38-year-old executive, known for her coldness in business and fortune built in real estate, pointed accusingly at Marcus, the black waiter who had knelt beside her son, Liam. The 7-year-old boy, who minutes earlier had been in the throes of a sensory meltdown, screaming and banging his head on the table, now remained silent, staring intently at the waiter who was drawing symbols on a napkin with extraordinary calm. "Ma'am, he's just helping the boy," Mr. Pierre Dubois, the maitre d', tried to explain, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. "Marcus specializes in alternative communication. I don't care what diploma he forged." Catherine stood up, adjusting her impeccable blazer. "Who gave him permission to touch my son? Do you have any idea who I am?" The restaurant fell into an awkward silence. At the next table, Dr. Evelyn Clark, a renowned neurologist and close friend of Catherine's, lowered her head, pretending to look for something in her purse, clearly embarrassed by the scene. Marcus remained impassive, dignity shining in his dark eyes as he slowly rose. "I apologize for the intrusion, Mrs. Thorne. Your son was using echolalia, repeating numbers in sequence to calm himself. I simply wrote them down to create a visual anchor." Catherine froze. How did that waiter know her full name? And how did he know technical terms about Liam's disorder that even she, after consulting with the most expensive specialists in the country, did not fully understand? "Mommy, look." Liam's voice came unexpectedly, almost like a whisper. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Liam hadn't spoken a coherent word in almost 2 years. The boy pointed to the napkin where Marcus had drawn a sequence of numbers and symbols. 7, 6, 5, 4. It's a countdown. It calms me down. Catherine felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. Her son was talking. Forming complete sentences. Communicating. "How did you?" she began to ask, but was interrupted by the manager, Charles Westwood, who appeared hurriedly. "Mr. Marcus, please follow me to the office immediately." The tone did not hide his contained anger. "Mrs. Thorne, please accept our sincerest apologies for this unacceptable incident. The employee will be punished accordingly." Something in Marcus's expression changed, a quick flash of anger, soon replaced by a calculating serenity that Catherine, an expert in hostile negotiations, recognized immediately. This man was not defeated, he was assessing, planning. "Don't bother," Marcus replied to the manager, slowly unbuttoning his uniform vest. "I quit. Some places don't deserve the best of us." Turning to Liam, he smiled genuinely. "It was a pleasure meeting you, young mathematician." To everyone's surprise, Liam reached out and took Marcus's hand. "Stay," he said in a trembling voice. "Please." Catherine felt tears burn her eyes. In 2 years of expensive therapy, international consultations, and experimental treatments, nothing had achieved what that waiter had accomplished in minutes. "Your car is waiting, sir," said Charles, clearing a path between the tables. "Don't make us call security." Marcus nodded, his dignity intact as he walked toward the exit. As he passed the table, he discreetly slipped a card toward the napkin with the numbers on it. Catherine picked it up reflexively, hiding it in her closed palm as she watched him walk through the mirrored doors. A wave of shame washed over her, not just for the public embarrassment, but for something deeper she didn't want to admit. She looked at the card in her hand, Dr. Marcus Hayes, Ph.D. in behavioral neuroscience. Specialist in nonverbal communication. What no one in that restaurant could have imagined was that this moment of public humiliation was not the end but the beginning of a journey that would transform 3 lives forever. Behind that waiter facade was a man with a purpose too powerful to be held back by prejudice, and a personal story that connected to Catherine's in ways she could never have suspected. If this story of prejudice and redemption touched your heart, Be sure to sign up to find out how a simple business card would become the first step in tearing down an empire of lies that kept Liam prisoner of his silence. Over the next 2 weeks, Catherine Thorne alternated between regretting her behavior at the restaurant and planning how to contact the man who had made Liam talk. The card remained on her nightstand, gnawing at her conscience every morning. The CEO of Thorne Enterprises, accustomed to making decisions that affected millions in seconds, found herself paralyzed by shame. "You need to call him," Dr. Evelyn Clark insisted as she watched Liam through the mansion window. The boy sat in the garden, obsessively drawing the same sequence of numbers in his notebook. He hadn't spoken a single word since the incident. "For God's sake, Catherine, put your pride aside." "It's not pride," Catherine whispered, unable to take her eyes off her son. "It's fear." "Fear? You?" The woman who stood alone against a board of men to take control of the company when everyone bet on her failure? Catherine took a deep breath. There was another reason for her hesitation, something even her closest friend didn't know, something related to the Hayes name. "I'll research him first," she finally decided. What Catherine discovered in the following hours left her stunned. Dr. Marcus Hayes, 34, was a prodigy. He graduated from Harvard at 22, earned his PhD at Stanford at 26, and had published articles in renowned scientific journals on nonverbal communication in neurodivergent children. But what really took her breath away was the discovery that 3 years ago, he had abandoned a promising academic career after a scandal involving the death of his younger brother, Ethan, diagnosed with severe autism, while under the care of an experimental clinic, the Horizon Clinic. The same one Liam had been attending monthly for experimental treatments. The same one that belonged to the Thorne Enterprises group. Catherine felt her stomach sink. Marcus wasn't at Elysium by chance, he was watching, studying, maybe even, she swallowed hard, the word revenge flashing like a warning in her mind. Meanwhile, in a small apartment across town, Marcus was meticulously organizing a wall full of documents. In the center was a photo of his brother Ethan, smiling. Around it were news articles about the Horizon Clinic, financial documents from Thorne Enterprises, and discreet photographs of Liam at various public events. "I'm getting closer, little brother," he murmured to the photo. "She'll come looking for me, I'm sure of it." The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Mr. Pierre Dubois, the maitre d' at Elysium. "She's looking for you," said the voice on the other end of the line. "She hired a private investigator. She's desperate." "Marcus," the boy has stopped talking again. Marcus closed his eyes. Part of him wanted to rejoice in the suffering of Catherine Thorne, the woman whose companies profited from experimental treatments that had cost Ethan his life. But another part, the scientist, the brother who had cared for someone like Liam, felt devastated by the child trapped in his silent world. "What are you going to do?" asked Pierre, concerned by the prolonged silence. "What I've always planned," replied Marcus, looking at a specific folder on his desk. "Operation Truth. But not as I imagined." 3 days later, in a discreet cafe away from the spotlight, Catherine waited nervously. She had arrived an hour earlier, dismissed the security guards, and parked her own car, things she never did. She needed this meeting on neutral ground. Marcus arrived on time, wearing simple jeans and a blue shirt, nothing that suggested the academic brilliance revealed by the dossier in Catherine's possession. He saw her immediately, but before approaching her, he did something that surprised her. He took a photo of Ethan out of his pocket, looked at her, and whispered something like a silent promise. "Thank you for coming," Catherine began when he sat down across from her. "I didn't come for you," he replied dryly. "I came for Liam." The silence between them hung heavy for several seconds. "You knew who I was from the beginning," she stated. It wasn't a question. Marcus stared at her with disturbing intensity. "From the moment Horizon accepted Liam as a patient, and I took the job at the restaurant." "Coincidence?" he replied with a half-smile that suggested otherwise. "You really believe in coincidences, Mrs. Thorne?" Catherine felt fear rise, but she controlled it as she had done thousands of times in tense negotiations. "What do you want?" His answer caught her completely off guard. I want you to hire me as Liam's personal therapist, with unrestricted access to all of his medical records at Horizon, and permission to completely modify his treatment. That's absurd. Why would I trust my son to? Because at the restaurant, Marcus interrupted, leaning forward, when everyone saw a meltdown, I saw a boy desperately trying to tell you that he's being harmed by the treatments you believe are helping him. Unexpected tears welled up in Catherine's eyes. How did you? The numbers, Mrs. Thorne. The sequence wasn't random, it was a code. Liam is a genius fighting to survive what they're doing to him. At that moment, Catherine made a decision that would change everything, not because she trusted Marcus, but because she loved Liam more than anything in the world. My driver will bring your contract tomorrow, she said, standing up. But know this, Dr. Hayes, if I find out this is some kind of revenge for your brother's death, there is no place in this world where you can hide from me. What Catherine didn't notice as she hurried out of the cafe was the slight tremor in Marcus's hands as he put away the photo of his brother, nor did she notice the small tape recorder he discreetly turned off under the table. The chess game between them was just beginning, and Liam was simultaneously king and pawn, a central piece that neither of them could afford to lose. 3 months had passed since Dr. Marcus Hayes took on the role of Liam's private therapist. The boy's transformation was undeniable. Not only had he started talking again, but he now communicated in complete sentences, drew with purpose, and even developed his own mathematical codes to express emotions. At the Thorne mansion, the tense atmosphere gradually turned into a fragile normality. On that sunny morning, sitting in her glass office on the 40th floor of Thorne Tower, Catherine reviewed the latest updates on Liam. The recorded session showed a different boy, smiling, confident, free. Part of her felt genuine relief, another part remained vigilant, watching Marcus's every move from a distance. Dr. Clark is on the line again, her assistant informed her, interrupting her thoughts. She insists it's urgent. Catherine frowned. Evelyn had become strangely evasive in recent weeks, canceling lunches, avoiding visits to the mansion. Connect her. Catherine. Evelyn's voice sounded tense over the speakerphone. We need to talk. Not on the phone. I'm busy, Liz. Get to the point. A heavy sigh. It's about Dr. Hayes and Horizon. I've discovered something disturbing. Catherine's heart raced. My office, in an hour. While she waited, Catherine opened her personal safe and removed a folder marked Project Chrysalis, confidential documents that not even the board members knew about, signed only by her and Dr. David Reed, Horizon's director. Experimental studies. Unapproved techniques. Promising results, despite acceptable side effects. When Evelyn entered, she had an expression Catherine hadn't seen since college, the same one she had when they faced an abusive professor who threatened their careers. What do you know about Ethan Hayes? Evelyn asked bluntly. Marcus's brother? Only that he died at Horizon during experimental treatment. Evelyn placed a flash drive on the table. Not quite. He didn't pass away according to these internal reports. Ethan was deliberately used as a test subject for the Chrysalis protocol without proper informed consent. Catherine paled. Where did you get this? Marcus came to me 2 months ago. I didn't want to believe it, but the documents. Evelyn bit her lip. Catherine, did you know about this? Of course not. Catherine stood up abruptly, but the memory of a hastily signed document she had barely read flashed through her mind. I would never approve something like that. It's all documented. And worse, the same protocol is being used on Liam. Impossible. Liam is getting better. Temporarily. The long-term neurological effects are. Evelyn couldn't finish. Catherine's phone rang, the mansion's private number. Mrs. Thorne, the housekeeper's voice was trembling. Dr. Hayes is in the main office with Liam. He locked the door and activated the house transmission system. He's showing some kind of presentation on all the screens. Call security. Catherine shouted, already running for the elevator with Evelyn at her heels. In the Thorne mansion, every television, tablet, and monitor displayed the same image, Marcus sitting calmly next to Liam, facing a wall of evidence. "Good afternoon, Catherine," Marcus said directly to the camera. "I imagine you're already on your way. Don't worry, Liam is perfectly safe. In fact, for the first time since he began treatment at Horizon, he is truly safe." Liam smiled and waved. "Hi, Mom. I'm helping Dr. Marcus save other children. What you see behind us," Marcus continued, gesturing to the wall of documents, "is the truth about Project Chrysalis, an experimental protocol designed to reprogram neurodivergent brains through nanoparticles that bind to specific neural receptors, promising a cure for autism but causing permanent brain damage." The camera zoomed in on a photo, a smiling boy with the same eyes as Marcus. "This is Ethan, my brother. Diagnosed with severe autism at age 4. Placed in the Chrysalis program without our full consent. Killed at age 12 from unforeseen neurological complications." The broadcast cut to security footage from Horizon, children in seizures, doctors rushing to administer sedatives, meetings where risks were discussed and ignored. "What you didn't know, Catherine, is that while I was working with Liam, I was also treating the damage caused by Chrysalis. The improvements you saw weren't miracles, they were recoveries after I secretly stopped the protocol." When Catherine's limousine pulled up to the mansion, a crowd had already gathered, journalists, cameras, families holding photos of children, Horizon patients. She rushed inside, finding security helpless in front of the locked doors of her own office. On the screens, Marcus continued, "Today I'm not just exposing the truth, I'm presenting the solution." The camera showed Liam demonstrating exercises and using tablets with specific programs. "I've developed a reversal protocol to minimize the damage from Chrysalis. All the material is being sent right now to medical authorities, health departments, and affected families." Catherine finally managed to get inside, finding Marcus and Liam sitting calmly as they had been during the broadcast, which continued on every screen in the house. She began, but stopped when she saw Liam protectively placing himself in front of Marcus. "No, Mom," the boy said with surprising firmness. "Dr. Marcus saved me. He saved my brain." Marcus stood up, dignity emanating from his every gesture. "You have two options, Catherine. First, deny everything, sue me, use your power to silence the truth. In that case, the evidence has already been sent to the Washington Post, the New York Times, and federal prosecutors." He paused, watching Catherine's devastated expression. "Second option, acknowledge your mistakes, take responsibility, and use your fortune and influence to repair the damage. Fund corrective treatments for every affected child. Reform Horizon as an ethical research center. Make the difference you always wanted to make before you got lost in the numbers." Evelyn entered the room, standing beside Marcus. The betrayal Catherine felt was palpable. "You too, Liz." "I've always been on the side of what's right," Evelyn replied softly. "How could you be if you remember the woman I met in college?" Liam approached his mother, touching her hand hesitantly. "Dr. Marcus says you didn't know everything, that bad people hid things from you." Catherine's legs gave way, and she collapsed into the nearest chair. The empire she had built crumbling in real time on the screens. Images of Ethan smiling alternated with documents bearing her signature on protocols she barely remembered approving. "It's too late," she whispered. Marcus turned off the cameras with a soft click. "It's never too late to do the right thing, Catherine. Believe me, I spent 3 years planning to destroy you completely, until I met Liam and realized that revenge wouldn't save my brother, but the truth could save dozens of children." He held out his hand, not as an enemy, but as a potential ally in a cause greater than both of them. In that silent office, surrounded by painful truths and impossible choices, 3 people remained suspended in a decisive moment. The mansion that had always represented power now seemed as fragile as a house of cards. And as the media gathered at the gates and the phones rang incessantly, one question hung in the air: can someone truly rebuild themselves from the ashes of their own mistakes? 3 years had passed since that afternoon that changed everything. At the new headquarters of the Chrysalis Reborn Foundation, Catherine Thorne looked out the window at the courtyard where neurodivergent children played freely. Among them, Liam, now 10, patiently explained a complex mathematical code to 2 other boys. He really has a way with words now, commented Dr. Marcus Hayes, approaching with 2 coffees. He was no longer wearing his waiter's uniform, obviously. Dr. Hayes was now the scientific director of the foundation, using his title for the purpose it should always have had. Who would have thought we'd end up here? Catherine took the cup, smiling slightly. The woman who once commanded empires with cold calculation had disappeared. In her place, a different leader had emerged, still determined, but guided by purpose rather than power. On that crucial afternoon 3 years ago, Catherine could have chosen the easy way out, sue Marcus, cover up the scandal, sacrifice a few pieces on her corporate chessboard. Instead, she had done something no one expected. She had taken full responsibility. Remember the day of the public hearing? Marcus asked as they looked out over the courtyard together. How could she forget? Catherine Thorne, impeccably dressed, standing before the Senate committee, cameras broadcasting across the country. I failed. Not just as a CEO, but as a mother, as a human being. Today, I am here to do what is right. Thorne Enterprises had been dismantled, reorganized as a non-profit foundation dedicated to ethical research and revolutionary treatment for neurodivergent children. Catherine's fortune, practically all of it, funded treatments for more than 600 children affected by the chrysalis protocol. Ethan would be proud, Catherine said softly. The name no longer caused tension between them. Marcus's brother's photo had a place of honor in the main lobby, next to a commemorative plaque, so that no child will ever be silenced again. Dr. Evelyn Clark appeared at the door, waving to them. They're here. In the main auditorium, families waited in silence, fathers and mothers of children affected by chrysalis, who 3 years earlier had hoped for justice, now witnessed something greater, redemption. Catherine took the stage without papers or teleprompters. When we lose our way, the universe sometimes sends unlikely messengers to rescue us. For me, it was a waiter who refused to be invisible, her steady voice now trembled slightly, and a child who deserved to be heard. In the front row, Liam smiled, his restless hands drumming a rhythm known only to him. Next to him was an empty chair with a photo, Ethan Hayes. Today, we announced that the reverse protocol developed by Dr. Hayes and our team has been approved internationally. It will be made available free of charge to all clinics that treat neurodivergent children. No family will pay a penny. The room erupted in applause. Marcus watched from the back, a silent tear rolling down his cheek. Catherine continued, Some ask me if I regret losing my fortune, my empire. The truth is, I've never been richer. She paused, looking directly at Liam. I've learned that there is no greater fortune than the truth. There is no power greater than doing what is right, even when it is difficult, especially when it is difficult. Later, when the auditorium emptied and only the 3 remained, Catherine, Marcus, and Liam, the boy approached with a drawing. It was no longer a code of numbers, but a simple portrait, 3 figures holding hands. Family, he said simply. Catherine looked at Marcus, the silent question hanging between them. He nodded almost imperceptibly. Yes, she replied to her son, holding his small hand while extending the other to Marcus. Family. On that peaceful afternoon, as the sun painted the horizon gold, 3 people who had begun their journeys as adversaries discovered the greatest truth of all. Sometimes our deepest wounds become portals to our greatest healing. And as night fell gently on the chrysalis reborn foundation, a lesson echoed silently through the halls. True wealth has never been in the empires we build, but in the lives we transform when we find the courage to do what is right. If this story of transformation and redemption touched your heart, sign up for more stories that show how even in the darkest moments, humanity can still choose the light.